Hello everyone. Is it still possible to do anything to stop or slow climate change with an invention? This has been my goal over the last 15 years. Here, I will explain in 3 parts my understanding about why we are unable to act collectively in an efficient way to preserve our climate, then how I tried to create a machine that could save us all, and then, despite of all the difficulties that can still be on the way, why I believe it can work. Let us start with the first part, why Earth is still being warmed, despite of all our efforts over the last decades. I will speak with simple terms, without blaming anyone. The answer is not carbon dioxide, or not only, because many gases can cause an increase in greenhouse effect. Combustion is more likely to be the right answer. Why combustion? Because combustion is the typical activity of an industrial world. When a fossil fuel, if you accept the case of hydrogen, is burned, it emits heat, carbon dioxide, steam, and soots. This heat is used for many usages, and house heating or power generation are the main ones. But, to be honest, no environmental thinker can say, hey, let's go back to Stone Age again. We need electricity, we need to be warm in winter times, we need our machines to do repetitive and heavy tasks instead of us, we need our computers to calculate faster than our own brains. Or for our leisure. Combustion would not be a problem if the degraded heat would then radiate into space. Earth temperature would be more or less the same. This is an assumption. But because of carbon dioxide, and, what is less known, steam too, the radiative balance has changed. We have all learned this story about greenhouse effect and what is improperly called global warming. I prefer the terms of climate change, because our Earth weather is being affected on a non-reversible basis. So, how to decrease our emission, altogether? Well, the answer is simple: emitting less carbon dioxide, less steam, less methane, and less HFC components that are used in our fridges and in our freezers. Of course, we cannot ban freezers, we cannot all become vegan, and a balanced diet still may include meat or food supplements, and we cannot shut down all coal, fuel or nuclear power plants in one day. It would be a true disaster. Why I include nuclear power plants in this list? Because they have a terrible thermodynamic efficiency, about 30% in the best case, and when you see a 1,500 megawatts nuclear power plant, in terms of electric power, I also see a roughly 3,000 megawatts giant kettle. Heat is of course diluted into atmosphere, with no carbon dioxide emission, but this kind of energy still burns a nuclear fuel or a non-renewable resource. So, this was for the first part. We are not able to drastically change our way of life, and our carbon dioxide emissions, because the only thing we know as human beings, since the dawn of time, is to burn something to provide heat, and then, since the 19th century, to convert this heat into mechanical or electrical power. This thought will lead me to the second point of this qualitative video, because I will not make calculations, to keep things simple. I have always thought, as a thermodynamician, if we can change our set of mind. And I started asking myself about 15 years ago if I could invent a machine or a full industrial process which can be of some interest to preserve our way of life, and can be more virtuous for the environment. In terms of professional background, I used to work in cryogenics, power generation, and energy efficiency for many different companies. So, in a first time, I was chasing a dream. I used to imagine a cooling cycle combined to a Rankine cycle. I tried to see if there was a little chance that the cooling cycle could consume less power than the power which was generated by the Rankine cycle. Unfortunately, the laws of thermodynamics prevents this from happening. Anyway, I had ideas about how to make both cycles very efficient. You may think this idea was stupid or a loss of time. But research is never a loss of time, even when it is made alone. If you forget the laws of thermodynamics for a while, and be imaginative, what we need for our world is a cold source which can make appear the ambient heat as a hot source. Instead of burning a resource such as gas, wood or oil, you would use a warmed atmosphere as a heat reservoir that you would chill a little. The only major problem you have with this artificial cold source, which must be around -180 degrees Celsius, is that it does not exist. You may imagine a space elevator, liquefy a gas with heat exchange against outer space, but come on. This is science fiction. What you can imagine instead, with today's technology, are what I would call traditional cooling cycles that are used in cryogenics. You can improve them a bit, and what I would suggest would be to use a purified CO2 cycle as a first cooling stage, to reach something about -50 degrees Celsius, and then to use air to be compressed, cooled and expanded, to be liquefied. No need of fossil resource. Of course, this step of the process is obtained at a great energy cost. You need electrical power for a set of industrial compressors to obtain a non-separated liquefied air around -180 or -190 degrees Celsius. Then it is important to see the bigger picture. Of course, your maximum Carnot efficiency is pretty low during this creation of an artificial cold source. Something about 46% in the best case. But if this cold is generated thanks to renewable energies, such as wind power, geothermal energy or solar energy, and maybe some biomass power plants, the carbon dioxide balance of this process is still neutral. What you get for free is a side effect of compression: heat. Heat below 250 degrees Celsius can be easily generated out of these cooling cycles. Instead of using electricity or burning domestic gas to cook, iron, have a shower, or warm your house, you may use only a heat network, similar to district heating in big cities. This would be the main progress. No combustion would be necessary for any application below 200 or 250 degrees Celsius. And we can save this way a lot of carbon dioxide emissions to our atmosphere. This was for the hot side of this invention. Now, let's look at the cryogenic side. With a cold source about -180 degrees Celsius, you may achieve a power generation with an efficiency of 66% with a temperature of 15 degrees Celsius, which is commonly found in our atmosphere. In fact, it is more or less Earth average temperature. Creating a Rankine cycle by evaporating pressurized liquefied air before expanding it in a turbine would be an exceptional way to generate electric power and cool our climate to fight global warming. Instead of burning fossil fuels or wasting nuclear resource, we would use this artificial cold to stabilize our climate and create our electricity. Of course, I will not pretend we generate more power this way than we consume by creating this cold. But if the compressors are powered by renewable sources, it is still a nice invention, because we would end the oil and combustion eras. But there is more. You may wonder at this stage why I tried to reach -180 degrees Celsius instead of -40 degrees Celsius, which is much more achievable using liquid propane instead of liquid air. Energetic yield would be better. True. But I wanted a solution which did not imply the use of oil or natural gas, in order to be applied almost anywhere in the world. The point is that at -160 degrees Celsius, for example, after air expansion in the turbine, we have a degraded cold source that we can still use, and that we do not want to release right away in out atmosphere. In 1994, Nobel Prize George Olah proved that it was possible to make a chemical reaction with methane and some superacids, such as antimony pentafluoride. I am not a total expert, but from what I understand, this reaction needs cold, something like -78 degrees Celsius, and it produces more complex hydrocarbons, such as pentane or octane, and hydrogen, without emitting carbon dioxide. Of course, using superacids can only be done in special chemical facilities, but it is an opportunity. So, if you follow my thought, we can use fermentation of organic or vegetable waste to produce biomethane, and this biomethane can be transformed, thanks to the cold we produce and superacids chemical reaction, into gasoline and hydrogen. Hydrogen can be used as a high-quality fuel which will never emit carbon dioxide, for industrial use where we need to reach higher temperature than 250 degrees Celsius. Gasoline may still be used as a fuel, when there is no alternative, but it would be better to use it as raw materials for plastics, or technical plastics which can never be completely recycled. There is always a need of fresh input, and we need them to make medicine, cosmetics, and so many high-tech materials. Therefore, we cannot ban them, but we can improve the way they are produced and make them enter in a circular economy loop. This is the way I see things for a more sustainable world, a positive ecology, and a way to solve the problem of accelerated climate change due to global warming. The most surprising thing, then, is that I do not feel to have invented anything in the process. I have just collected puzzle pieces and fit them together. This is the reason why I believe this process that I have just described cannot be patented and must be brought to public knowledge. Then your question might be, will it work? How far can you trust me? Or must you be skeptical about what I have just said? These are good questions. The fact is that I cannot publish some research work. I am not a researcher myself, even though, surprisingly, sometimes, I have to supervise doctorate work in another area of research. But publication takes time, a lot of time, and we do not have time. We only have 3 years left for undertaking serious actions before it will be too late, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. This is the reason why I have decided to publish on YouTube. This is what I can do. I am not rich enough to start my own company. I am not famous enough to influence governments. But in 20 years from now, if my kids ask me what I have done to slow or prevent climate change, I will answer them that instead of keeping secret my ideas and try to raise funds for a startup or something, I share this knowledge, because the more we will be to try to implement these processes, the better it will work. Of course, there are many good solutions for the sake of environment. I do not pretend to have the only one. But the soonest we will avoid to burn our resource to create energy, the best it will be. Oh, I almost forget. Some people say that with the renewable energies cannot be stored. This is not completely true. With heat or cold tanks that we can imagine just like on board of LNG carriers, we can imagine a way to preserve an excess of wind power, solar generation or electricity produced by a river dam. This heat or cold can wait there, ready to be used or to be converted into electricity, during a few days or even during a week. If you have appreciated this video, you can of course like, subscribe and comment. If you want to try to make this ideas real, well, it is reasonably easy to guess how to contact me. I'll be glad to help. If you want a more technical description, with more figures, and scientific facts, I will make another video. But here, I wanted to keep the idea as simple as it was. Many thanks for your attention.